George McPhee was the GM of the Washington Capitals from 1997 to 2014. During his tenure as GM of the Washington Capitals, he had his fair share of good moves and bad moves. But in this episode, I will be focusing on his worst moves as GM of the Washington Capitals. His worst move as GM of the Washington Capitals was trading Filip Forsberg to the Nashville Predators in exchange for Martin Erat and Michael Latta. Since getting traded from Washington to Nashville, Filip Forsberg has become one of the premier young forwards in the NHL and is a core piece for the Nashville Predators. Filip Forsberg has 60 goals and 133 points in 182 games played for the Nashville Predators since getting traded. Erat and Latta have combined for a whopping 3 goals and 37 points in 137 games played. Fair to say, we will look back at this trade as one of the worst trades in NHL history. Jarmoir Jagr is a legend, but the contract that he got from the Washington Capitals was absolutely outrageous and it was groundbreaking. At the time, it was the richest contract ever in NHL history. It was an 8-year deal worth $88 million total. That's $11 million per season. Jagr's stint with the Capitals was not as successful as the Capitals had hoped when they signed him, and he was ultimately traded to the New York Rangers 2 years later. On January 23, 2004, Washington Capitals traded Jarmoir Jagr to the New York Rangers straight up for Anson. The Jagr for Anson trade would ultimately turn into one of the most lopsided trades in NHL history. Jagr would return to form with the Rangers, putting up 319 points over 3 seasons. Anson didn't even play a full season with the Capitals. He would only play in 19 games, but he did put up 10 points. The Jagr contract set the Caps back many years. Not only did they trade him, but they were also on the hook for $4 million of his salary. In the 2004 draft, the Caps had 3 first-round picks. They could have used those 3 first-round picks to build a really solid foundation for their team. With the first overall pick, they selected Alex Ovechkin. That was the right pick. At 27, they selected Jeff Schultz. And at 29, they selected Mike Green. Mike Green is a solid puck-moving defenseman, but at times he's a defensive liability and a turnover machine. You could have used that pick to pick an all-star caliber goalie in Pekka Rinne. Instead of Jeff Schultz, they could have picked David Krejci, a great two-way center that can play in all situations and be the center for Alex Ovechkin. And they didn't need to wait for Nicholas Backstrom to be drafted in 2006. If you compare the core of David Krejci, Alex Ovechkin, and Pekka Rinne to when Ovechkin started, that's a whole lot better. In 2005, they decided to pick a guy by the name of Sasha Pukalak in the first round, who never played a single NHL game. Instead of picking him, you could have picked Chris Letang, Paul Stastny, James Neal, and a lot of other good quality NHL players. The point I'm trying to make is the Capitals didn't really draft that well outside of Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Varlamov, Karlsson. Those are only a few solid players. Imagine if the Washington Capitals could have drafted players that weren't busts with the early picks they had. If they were able to draft players that weren't busts, they would have been a contender a lot sooner than they were. George McPhee did many good things when he first arrived in Washington, but that was all erased by the Jagr contract. The Jagr contract really signified the beginning of the end for George McPhee's reign as GM in Washington. Next episode, I will be talking about Mike Gillis's reign as GM of the Canucks.